There's one in Kansas City in like February, March.
Nauka.
Yeah,
we've been to Nauka.
Isn't it like on New Year's Eve now?
No, that's Icky.
Oh, that's Icky, yeah.
Not this in spring break.
Yeah.
still pretty cold sometimes.
Naga, I went 3 years in a row, and every time it was snow. It was a
Yes,
snowstorm
like
on the way
snowing
down,
on the way
and I was
home.
white knuckling it, like we're gonna die. Guess it's we were late. We can go ahead and start. We are -1. She got sick last night at the contest, so it's just gonna be us two today. So hopefully we can answer any questions. We figured. Well, I'm Saya, by the way.
I'm Hikaru.
Yes, it's on.
Oh, it's on.
We're just going to go through some techniques that people are always asking about. When people are starting to get a little more advanced in their cosplaying and they're starting to want to sculpt wigs and do odangos, if you guys know what odangos are, the little balls on the head. They're like, how do I do that? What is wefting? What is this? How do I dye wigs? I don't understand the difference between fibers. So that's why we did this panel, because we thought it'd be good just to break it down if you don't know the difference in all that stuff. So I figure we'll start with wig fiber, and that's the biggest mistake most people make. They tend to think that wigs can be styled like hair, but they're very different. Wig fibers are actually stretched out plastic. So if you pull them too hard, they will stretch, get thin, and then curl up. So brushing and everything's totally different. You've got to treat it like a wig, not hair. But that's kind of basic. Everybody knows that. And the thing that we get a lot of questions on is wefting. Does everybody here know what wefts are? Yes?
Nope.
You don't know what wefts are? Wefts are the individual skeins of hair that are sewn together to make a wig. They look like that. That is the typical term. That is an actual hair weft. But you'll hear cosplayers refer to wefting as all kinds of different things. It's a generic term that we use for sewing wefts into a wig. But you can buy the store-bought kind. We can pass these around. That's a curly one. This is a straight one. These are store-bought wefts. You can see they've got a nice little braid there for you to sew into your wig. But a lot of people will tell me, well, I custom dyed my wig. How do I get the wefts? Well, you can cut some off, like if you're doing a really big ponytail and you have excess fiber, you can cut them off and make your own wefts. And so I brought the method I use with caulk. Everybody knows silk. You take your wig fibers, you tape them down on like a marble surface or a nice slick countertop, and you put the silicone caulk, looks like this. It's the same stuff you buy at any store or Walmart to seal a window. Just make sure it dries clear, not white. And you just put it over there, you wet your finger, and you squish it into the fibers. You let it sit till it turns clear, then you pull up the tape, flip it over, and do it again. And you end up with a store-bought or a personal weft. So that one's really old and torn up, but it works really well. So I'll let you guys look at that. She uses a different method.
And you can sew through that as well with a needle.
Oh, yeah.
You can get so. Another method, and just to preface, this method I'm about to say is good for just chunk highlights. It's not good for massive wefting, like if your wig is really thin or you're doing a ponytail. But if you have like a chunky highlight here, whatever, a quick and easy way is to take your loose fibers, your loose hairs, and lay them out on a piece of fabric. Then you're going to sew over it with your machine probably 15, 20 times back and forth. You're going to fold your fabric over it again. You're going to sew over it again. So you can make a sewing weft like that. Again, it's not good for a large amount, but if you just have like one character has like this one pink strand here or whatever, it's a really quick and easy method, and you almost always have scrap fabric laying around anyway, so it's not going to cost you anything. So.
Okay, so what are wefts for, you say? Well, this is our example wig, so I'll pass it around and everybody can see. There's different techniques on here. We'll go through them. But the most common way you use wefts is to hide a hairline. Wigs that are down straight wigs were made for the fiber to be down. And then we as cosplays pull it up into a ponytail, so it will actually expose a naked edge. If that wig was not made for an updo, it will show and you'll see the wig netting. So you're supposed to come in and take these little wefts, right here, and you sew them onto the wig netting, literally by hand. You just want to do it. So I think I'm going to let you guys see this. The big mistake and I've made this so I know, first time I sewed on a weft, I just held it in my hand, sewed it on, then went to put it on my head. And of course, it's stretch over your head. So you've got to make either sew it while you're wearing it or make a custom wig head, which I'll tell you guys how to do. It's super cool. But you can look all around here. It's sewn weft on here. This is what it looks like if you buy one made into it up to. Because I know like some of them have pigtail wigs and it's already done. So of course that's much nicer than sewing your own in, and it basically looks like that when you're done. But that's a kind of just a cleaner technique. You guys can pass that around and look. But custom wig heads.
Basically, do you guys know the little, it's all colorful, the Easter grass that you put in Easter baskets? Basically, you need a couple of bags of that. That's your supplies. And then you also need saran wrap, or I like to use duct tape on mine, whatever.
I use clear tape.
Yeah, either way, some form of tape. And you're just going to put, first you need a friend. You're going to put a wig cap on your head, and then you're going to kind of tape over and get that form, like what the shape of your head is. Because your head is going to
lay their saran wrap down first.
Oh yeah, don't tape directly on their head, sorry.
You just take a saran. We have a video on our thing if you guys want to see it actually be done, but you just.
Your head is bigger than a wig head, unless you're just a really tiny person or like a child. But wig heads are like child-sized heads, basically. So a wig head is not going to fit your head. So you're going to tape over on their hair because you're a mean person. You're going to take their hair. On your saran wrap, and you're going to get the shape of their head. And then you can cut that off, and then you have the shape of the head, which is going to be larger.
Once you put enough tape, it literally holds its own shape, and you can pull it off.
And you can put it on your little styrofoam wig head, and you can take your Easter grass, and you can stuff it so that it's filled out. Then you have an actual filled-in head that's bigger, and it's the same size of your head. And you can, because it has the Easter grass in it, it's filled in. You can pin into it. You can put wigs on it. It'll hold its shape. It's sturdy. That way you have a wig head that actually you can style onto, which is so much better for like ponytails, for example. Ponytails are so hard to style without a bigger wig head. Oh, also another good one of our friends, the male wig heads for men, those are bigger. Those are actually like normal size wig heads. So that's a good way too. They're harder to find though, but those are bigger, so you don't have to do
absolutely. If you're going to do any kind of wig sculpting, you have to get one that's the right size. Because if you do all your wig sculpting on a store-bought one, it's not going to fit you properly.
When you try to
You'll put it on, your hairline will be up here.
You'll be so sad that you just spent like 18 hours styling this wig and you can't even pull it down.
That's personal experience, Tati.
Yeah, we've been there.
Good times. Okay, so we've done that. Another way you can use wefting, and I've done this multiple times with anime girls, their hair is like huge, and then you buy 2 wigs, you take apart one and add those wefts to the other. It's really time consuming, but you get such a better wig, real full. Yeah, you can do a lot of that. The other more difficult way is if you want to take a wig that wasn't meant to be a pigtail wig and turn it into a pigtail wig. When you take a wig and you separate the fibers like this and try to put it into pigtails, you're going to see a row of wig netting down the back part. Which, I mean, if you're just running around the convention, nobody cares. But if you want to compete, the judges are going to want to look to see that you've wefted apart. And how you do that is you probably need to use actual machine wefts, so professional kind. But you take 2 rows of them and you sew them together to where it hides the netting like this. Then you sew it onto the wig. And then you heat treat those into your pigtail. And so you have a nice little weft in the back. If you buy a wig professionally that's already in pigtails, they will have already done that for you. So it saves a lot of time. But there's not a whole lot of pigtail styles out there, colors, so sometimes you have to do it yourself.
This is an example. It's kind of hard to see. I can pass it around, but you can see on the top part, this was not a pigtail wig before I started, and I had to weft the back. It doesn't show the back, but it shows the top, and you can kind of see that you don't see the wig netting there.
But that is one of the more common things we see people make mistakes is they don't bother to weft their hairline or apart when they're competing. No one ever told them that they needed to do that. But anywhere you can see wig netting, got a wefting to cover it up. So those are your wefts. Another way you can add fullness, I brought these because I do this a lot. Another way to add fullness to pigtails, to ponytails, to anything, if you don't want to like rip apart a whole wig and stuff like that, are these. You can buy them at most just regular wig supplies. They're called zip little ponytail things. There's a little thing like this. You're supposed to put your hair in a ponytail, and you put this over it, and you just do like that, and you've got an extra ponytail. But you can use these on wigs. Like my Himawari wig, if you've ever seen me do the Himawari, she has these huge round things, and instead of doing foam car on all that, I just got a wig, wefted a hairline, put 2 pigtails in, and then put 2 giant zip ponytails on it. It's real quick and easy. These are really easy to use, and they're not expensive at all at a local wig store. And I don't see a lot of cosplayers using them. They're actually really useful. Because if you look on here, I'll pass them around, there is a ton of wefts sewed into each one of these. So if you wanted to take them apart, you could probably create a whole wig.
Another thing too, and this is how like a wig that you might order off eBay that has pigtails will come to you often. The 2 pigtails are actually clips that you take off, and they're separate pieces. It's so easy to make your own clip with a full wig. All you need is a little hair clamp pajamas that you can buy for 99
Pass one around. I made this one as an example.
And you just need your wig. You just take your little clip and put it through the wig netting, and then you have your own clip. It's so easy, and it's nice and thick because it's an entire
You guys aren't
wig.
seen this. It's just a mini one. You can see how you did it. I just put it in there around there. And
Just put the clip right through the wig netting. So simple. You don't need glue. You don't need to sew anything, and it stays. So.
Another thing people will do is they'll get a wig that doesn't have bangs, and they'll try to cut bangs into it. That is extremely, extremely difficult because when the wig manufacturers make a wig that doesn't have bangs, you've seen the professional hairline, you cannot train that to go down. So I always warn people, if you want bangs, it's best to buy a wig with bangs or buy bang add-ons. That's what these are. These have little straps that you hook onto your wig, and they create bangs in a wig that doesn't. I don't particularly like them. You can kind of see, it doesn't look as natural, but in a bind, if you have a wig, it's free, you want to use it, you don't want to buy a whole new, these things are, what, $7? So they're pretty cheap. Don't pay that too.
You're just going to be our throw girl.
Sorry. The next thing I thought we'd talk about is the different types of fibers. Because I know some people have asked us, silky, yaki, what does all this mean? What are the different types of fibers? And there's a bazillion types, so I'm not going to go into actual types, but the 2 main fibers that you'll see are these nice silky fibers, and they call them that. This is a silky. Well, they were silky before I shoved them in a bag. But they're straight and silky. They are going to look like less fiber when you use these, so if you're wanting a lot of fullness, you'd probably be better off going with what they call the yaki. It's like a crimped fiber. This is what they use to do the weaving braids. But this stuff, because it's crimped, it takes up more space with less weight. So if you have a character that has a really big braid, if you tried to do it out of silky, it'd probably take you $100 worth of fiber away in time. Whereas this stuff looks full and it's much cheaper.
Also, if you're worried about, because the yaki fiber doesn't look as pretty, obviously.
It doesn't, yeah.
But if you're worried about that, you can use that as kind of like filler inside of your wig, and then put the silky fibers on top of it. So you still have that nice luster and sheen and pretty looking hair, but you have the bulk from the yaki fiber underneath that. So you can hide it.
Now, how much do you guys know about the types of fibers? Nowadays, there's so many DIY, Hyperlon. You guys,
Ryokalon.
nothing?
I know.
Every single wig is actually made of a different type of fiber, and they all have different properties. It used to be real easy. There was 3.
Ryokalon.
Tankalon, and then the Allura fibers. Now they've got the DIY and all these ones that you can use curling irons and stuff on. People ask us all the time, I'm trying to dye a wig and it won't take. I don't understand the problem. When you're going to dye a wig, the most important thing you need to know is what type of fiber it is. Because like Allura fibers and the DIY fibers don't really take dye very well. So if you're really wanting to get a saturated, bright color and you're dyeing a wig, you need to get Tokiolon or Kankalon fibers. And they're a little bit harder to find than they used to be. Amphibori carries a lot of them. Cosworks carries a lot of them. But get it, buy it in white or the 613 blonde. Do you have a question?
Yes, I'm using a long white and the shoulder length white and orange wig, and I want to dye it with rainbow streaks in it and then black. Will that be possible?
You won't be able to dye with black.
I won't.
Mm-mm.
So
Black
I'm gonna
is
get
not-
black clip-ons.
No,
Yeah,
you can
black
flip
is
it
not
on.
actually a color.
Black is like all the best you can get is a
It's like
dark gray.
Yeah, or dark purple or dark green. That's how they make black.
So I
It's a
can get
shade.
like a blue black then?
You could do it blue. It's not going to be as everybody pictures this ebony with this cobalt blue
Probably the best thing would be to get some black wefts and
and
then
add them in.
Because this wig is like, I've had so much problems with, I was like, trying to find, do they make the wig for this? No.
Yeah.
Do you know what? I mean, Amphigori, by the way, if you're wanting to know, the lady who runs Amphigori is a lifelong cosplayer. So on every wig, if you click on it, she'll give you a little, it's made of these fibers, takes dye well, don't use this for an updo, this is good for wefting, she'll tell you everything, so that's kind
And
of nice.
they have boy cut wigs, which is the best thing about them.
Yes. They take a little longer, she's not always, she doesn't have stock, but you probably ought to check and make sure it's not a Laura fiber, because she does sell a Laura fiber, and a Laura fiber will take dye sort of, but not, like, that orange thing that I passed around, that was white when I started, so with the right fibers, you can do, I've done like super bright green and all that.
How long do you leave the dye in a wig?
Depends on what method, we're gonna go over
Yeah, all
methods.
right. Thank you.
Yeah.
Never dyed a wig.
Yeah.
Now, when you say that you sew it in, what do you sew it in?
Okay, you know those little needles that are rounded, they're
Yeah.
curved, that and just regular thread.
Special kind of regular.
Just whatever
all-purpose.
matches the color of the wig you're using.
Just make sure you do it, you whip it through a lot so you get
Yeah.
a really good hold on it.
We were talking about wig fibers. I think we've done that, but the big thing is this: try to find out where your fiber is. If you buy it from eBay, you're probably not going to know.
Yeah, they'll be like, this is silky hair fiber Japan. You're like,
Yeah,
okay.
Okay. But so I've gotten wigs from eBay and been able to dye them. I've gotten ones that I've tried every method I've ever used, and the best I can get is like sort of pale blue. So it's just hit and miss when you buy from eBay. So your best bet is if you're really, really needing a special color, make sure you know what fiber, look for the Tokyo on. Okay, so wig dyeing methods. Here.
Probably had it out.
Oh, here we go. There's a lot of different methods out there right now, so I'm only going to tell you the ones that we're real familiar with. The infamous Sharpie method, everybody uses.
Infamous. I like your Sharpie.
I brought
I'm
that so
pro
you could break
Sharpie,
it.
she's pro FWB.
Okay.
You want me to break it?
Yeah, I brought it for that. So.
So this is probably the oldest method that cosplayers discovered probably about 10 years ago, or maybe more even now. I don't remember what year it is. I can't even remember my name right now. So basically all you need is, for a short wig, like this length, you probably can get away with one Sharpie. The longer your wig is, the more Sharpies you're going to need. They're $1 at Hobby Lobby. It's not super expensive. You need Sharpies, we don't have any
Alcohol.
rubbing alcohol. Not the 90%.
70.
70%. It's very important. 90% is to take the dye out of your wig. 70% is to put the dye into your wig.
And the alcohol
Snake,
is just, it's just rubbing alcohol.
Yeah,
Go to
just
Walmart.
get your
It's like
$1.
cheap.
Yeah. So those are the two things that you need. So you're going to have your Sharpie that you need to break apart. You need to get the ink out of it. It's very easy to do. Take your lid off.
I just want to say, I know some people
Actually, I'm
think
not going to do it because of that. I don't want to get all over it. But
they think the Sharpie method means to get a Sharpie and color the.
you can do that
You can
too
do that,
if
but
you want to
that's
spend like 80
ridiculous.
hours.
Yeah, that is ridiculous.
That's so hard. We're all so lazy. Don't do that.
That's-
Take it in your hands like this. Bend it. Here's your ink. Okay? Now you need an X-Acto knife. You're going to take your little, or a box knife. You're going to take it, you're going to slit this down. You're going to open it up and expose the ink. You're going to have your alcohol and your water mixture. I like to use like 50% alcohol, 50% water. It's
I
kind of
use
hit or miss.
100% alcohol.
It's hit or miss though, honestly. And it also depends on, how much Sharpie ink you have too. If you have more Sharpie ink, then you can get away with more water. If you don't have as much Sharpie ink, you need more alcohol. But just once you have it slit open, just drop it in your little spray bottle that has your alcohol mixture. Shake it up. Leave it 5 minutes, shake it up. Shake it up probably 3 or 4 times and you got a good mix. You can spritz it all over your wig. Also, you can comb it through, or you can dump it all in a bucket.
I'm a dunker.
I like to dunk my wigs just because I like to just drop them in the pot and then just like walk away for an hour. Then I'll come back and I'll stir it up again. And you'll notice that because it's an alcohol mixture, it'll start to evaporate, which is good because you can just leave your wig until it dries up so that you're not losing any of that pigment. So,
But yeah, the idea of how long you leave it till the fibers are dried.
yeah, that's
Then you rinse
let it evaporate. Let the alcohol evaporate.
Which if you're wanting it to be quick, if you don't want a really dark method, then using the spray bottle method is the best and just comb it through. It'll dry really fast. But if you want a really, really dark saturated color, putting it like, you know those blue bunny ice cream things?
Yeah.
I keep 3 of those around for wig dyeing. I'll pour all the alcohol, put the lid on it, put it in my garage when it's hot so it'll evaporate faster. 2 days later, it's done. Then I rinse it. You're going to lose some of the color when you rinse it.
The picture that I passed around with the pink wig, that was originally a white wig, and it was dyed with the Sharpie method. So, and it was, I think I rinsed that one. I don't think it was in dunk.
I've done. The other method, and this is technically the exact same method, because this is an acrylic ink and this is an acrylic ink. It's a brand called FW Dye, or excuse me, ink, and it's just little squeezer bottles for inks, for calligraphy. They come in hundreds of colors, hundreds. And the reason I like this method is you can buy your primary colors, indigo, white, and black, and create any color you want.
You can make Sharpies do that.
Yeah, you can, but this is like, oh, it's not bright enough. 1 drop of indigo, it's brighter. Oh, it's not dark enough. A little bit of black, it's darker. So I can mix my wig and sit there and be like a scientist, and these little bottles last forever. But I think it's Stick Blick. It's an ink supply.
Yeah.
I mean, they usually get it to me within 4 days.
Unfortunately, and I don't know if it's different in different areas, but the Hobby Lobbies in Tulsa do not sell this. I don't know
They'll
why.
sell India ink, and it does not work the same.
Yeah, it's not the same thing. It's got to be this acrylic ink.
But I can pass this bottle around if you guys want to look at it. But I like it because, like I said, I can control it. You know, if I'm trying to go for this exact shade of teal, and it's supposed to be a dark teal, I want to be able to mix it until I get it right. Do it over and over. There is one place.
Oklahoma City.
Yes.
Why don't we have that in Tulsa?
Huh?
Michael's sells FW ink.
They do. Really, the one in my town does not.
Here in Tulsa, I've never seen it here.
Oklahoma City.
Oh.
Oh, I live in Norman.
So basically Tulsa.
Yeah.
Good.
But I was
live there
gonna.
too. It's okay.
Yeah.
Now, if you were gonna do like 2 different colors of the same wig, how would you go about doing that?
Spray bottle.
Okay.
Yeah, that's when I would do spray. I was going to talk about separating. You like separate it out with jog clamps, hold it out, put a little plastic underneath, and just spray it and let it dry.
Think about
Then
how
do
they
the
do
next one.
foiling at salons. They're just separating the pieces.
You're
and
going to do the
protecting
same
them.
thing.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's easier than you think. The hardest part is wig fiber gets all tangled up. That's the hardest part. But wear gloves.
No, don't wear gloves. You just look so pretty afterwards.
But when you do this method with the FW and stuff, I did the Harvest Goddess from Harvest Moon. If you look on the website, she's got this giant round braided thing that I made, and it's ombre dyed. It's supposed to go from light blue to dark blue all the way down, and it's huge. So I used those little crunchy white fibers that I sent around. That's actually left over from it, and I dyed those and I ombre them with the FW because I made one batch and then just watered it down. And so I did like the majority in here and then moved it to the next one a little further and the next one and then turned my guest bathroom blue by leaving it.
She made it better.
Pretty now. But I like the FW. I like the Sharpie. Like I said, it's technically the same method. It's just how you get the
It's
ink.
just getting that ink out.
Now there's a lot of newer methods using RIT dye. And I have done like 3 or 4 of the RIT dyes, and I haven't had the best success.
I'm not a red dye fan. It just feels crunchy.
It feels crunchy, but I have seen some stuff people have done online that they said they used RIT and
I
it's
think
drop
that
dead
if you-
gorgeous. So I think
I
with a
think
little
if
more
you have
practice,
a sculpted thing that doesn't have any movement, it's good. If you need a wig that flows, it's just not going to look right because it's got that hard, crunchy quality. But if you have the style that just does not move at all, it's probably good.
so, but yeah, there's tons of tutorials online for the RIT. From what I understand, you just follow the directions.
Arna has one. They have different, like all of different, how long they've left them and how the
That's
different
the one
colors are.
that's the one I'm referring to, and it was beautiful. She did some in yellow.
That
And they
really
were like
looks really
vivid,
good.
gorgeous yellow. So, but every time I've tried to use it, it's been like wah, 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 rinse it off, back to white. Damn, you know. So I don't know. But I was going to talk about 2 different methods that are really, really new, and I'm experimenting with them right now. One of them I don't have an example for you, but I don't. If you've ever dyed fabric, you've probably heard of the brand Jacquard. They do a lot of acid dyes and things like that. If you go to their website or dharmatrading.com, Jacquard makes what they call a fabric spray paint. And when you read about it, it's for synthetic fibers, and you're supposed to spray paint it on. Well, wigs are synthetic fibers. So we sprayed it on and brushed it out, and it's actually pretty impressive. Haven't worn the wig yet to see if it rubs off. That's why I'm like saying, you know, be careful, take that with a grain of salt. You might want to try yourself. Because some of these look great until you start trickling, feel sweat down your face. Sweat like me, or you sit back and the chair turns green, so things like that. This is the other one I just started. Michael started selling this stuff like a month ago. It's called Tint It, and if you read it, it's for spray painting transparent colors onto wood, plastic, glass, all kinds of different surfaces. This is plastic. So I tried a wig, just real quick and dirty, sprayed it down. It looks really good, really bright. It turned out this color. But like I said, I haven't done a lot of wear tests and things like that in sweaty environments. But if you guys, you know, it's done so cheap and so easy, and it comes in like bright pinks and browns and real fun colors. So keep in mind there's always different methods, so definitely branch out and try. 10:30? Okay. The next big thing we talk about is stubbing and foam pores. Do people know what we're talking about when we say that? Nope. Okay. When you do a ponytail or a pigtail on a wig, it's not like regular hair. You can't just pull it up into a ponytail because the wefts go like this, and then the weight pulls it down, and it basically your wig will fall off. It doesn't work real well. So the way you do that is by doing stubs, and that's where you put everything up into a ponytail. You weft your hairline, pull it up in there, put a little rubber band around it, and once again, using your trusty caulk, you cut it off and caulk it. And I'll put this around so you can see it. It looks a little weird, but the reason you're doing this is because now we pulled the fibers here, and now we're going to make and sew a wefted ponytail with foam core to go onto it, and it keeps the fibers pulled in different directions so it doesn't pull off your head. I know it sounds weird, but if you try to do a really big
So you're
pigtail,
taking way too many steps, but it's really necessary.
kind of have to, yeah. Huh? Just window seal? Yeah, anything that dries clear. But I'll pass this around. The bolt I'll explain in a little bit. But this was going to be a big, you know how you see on animes, they have the big, huge ponytail, and you're like, it's this thick. Man, that would take like 20 pounds of fiber. Or the Odangos, the little balls. Those are actually made using styrofoam balls. It's called foam core technique. I made a little quick foam core technique so you can see this. This would be attached over the stub, and then you would take your loose fibers and hairspray them, plaster them with this stuff, which is like, it's like wig cement. Get this if you want to sculpt. But this is what they mean when they say foam core, so I'm going to pass that around. But you just get any styrofoam balls from Hobby Lobby, shape them however you want. Did you see the wig that I wore last night at the contest with the big wings? That's all foam core. They're giant. I used a heat knife to shape them, and then I just plastered all the fibers over it with this stuff. Because I mean, let's face it, some of these shapes these characters have, you know, a ponytail that does that. Well, you can just do a little ponytail and it's not 100% accurate, or you can get foam core and it's light as anything and you look perfect. That's the idea behind foam core. Is anytime you see anything on a character that's so big, you're like, there's no way you could do a hair ponytail that thick. Foam core, you can do anything. You can do the Odango balls from Sailor Moon. That's how they do them. They stub the wigs, make the balls, plaster the hair, and then put them over the stubs with a bunch of caulk and let it sit overnight. Those are your Odangos. Chibi Moon, all of those. You'd be surprised what you can do with foam core. If you look at some of the characters I've done, the majority of what's on there is weird as foam core. Because you want your wig to be as light as you can. If you do too much fibers, it's not light. Does that make sense? It's hard to visualize sometimes. But I've done a lot of wigs where like I did the Maru twins from Holland, you know, her little pigtails drag the ground, or the Harvest Goddess where they're absolutely huge. So even with foam core, it's just a tremendous amount of weight. And so sometimes you have to do some kind of understructure to give the ponytail more lift, because with that much fiber, it'll droop. So you can see in there how I did it. I take these little things that are used for embroidery, but they're kind of stiff. I'll poke it out, and I will take like a carriage bolt and run it through that, and then run it through my stub. And what it does is it disperses some of that downward pull, so that my ponytail will stay up
You can
instead
see
of
here,
dropping.
that was what I used here on this wig. I have that underneath here to hold this form structure up. So that it was actually at an angle, so it would actually stand up at this awkward angle on my head, and that's how I secured it to the wig.
But you can, like, if you look on the inside, you'll see how I did it. But I've heard all kinds of different ones. I think I did a metal structure on one of my wigs. I like bent it into a headband and put bolts through it because it was just a ginormous wig. That was a lot of work, and it kind of hurt my head. It pinched really bad. So you got to think about what you're willing, your pain level, pain tolerance is too. So, but we love like doing the exact wig. If
We
they
love
drag the
having
ground,
migraines.
ours drag the
We
ground.
just love migraines.
Yeah, we do. Pretty much. So foam cores.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Looking at that reminded me
Yes.
of gap foam.
Do you guys know what expanding foam or gap foam is?
You can feel like holes in your
It's-
house, like yeah.
You can go ahead.
Okay. That's a really cheap and easy method to make a foam core structure too. You just spray it into like the overall general shape. It'll expand and it'll dry, and then you can take a carving knife. That's what we usually do first. You can carve it into the general shape that you want, and you can sand it down. Again, that's how I made this here. This is expanding foam, so it's super lightweight. It's adding like probably not even a pound overall to what you're wearing. And then you can, to go from there, you can wrap your hair around it, which is what I have here, and you can paint it, you can feel it, and it's just a really cheap, lightweight method to make a big structure. So.
Should we do the foam? Everybody got what they want out of foam core? Any questions on it? I was also going to say too, and I wish I had pictures, but get creative when you're talking. You can find so many cool things that you can add to a wig to make the shapes you want. We did a Bride of the Water God. It was this Chinese thing, and she had huge hair loops. And I found those they're foam curlers at Sally's that are long and they're bendable. Yeah, spray painted them black, plastered the hair, sewed them onto the wig, and I have perfectly round, and they're big. They're not just little hair loops, so they look exactly like the reference picture.
My husband buys these tubes that he puts around the outside faucets,
Yes, I know what you're
Yeah,
talking about. I've
yeah.
used those, yeah.
and I looked at them a couple of days ago, and I thought, I could cosplay that.
Yeah. It's fun being a cosplayer. You can't go anywhere without going, I could use that for something.
They're very lightweight, and they aren't as.
Yeah.
I got into cosmetology school, and just recently, and all I could think is what all the stuff they're telling me I could get. I'd be like, I could use that, I could use that, I could use that. I am going to have so much stuff for cosplay now.
Oh, and another way to make something a stand-up method is a wireframe. This used to be a lot more popular before people really got into the know about foam core structures. Like the picture I'm going to show is, I think, like 8 years old. A costume is like 8 years old. So, but you can just take the little, the wire, it's craft wire, or like they use it on electric fencing as well. It comes in the big rolls, and you can just shape your structure with that wire, and then you can put your hair up around it. It's also very lightweight, so I, was able to stand this up on its own. So again, it's widely used now, but if it's something you have around the house and you're on a budget, that's an option too. So.
I was going to say a little bit about cutting wigs, just because everybody always asks about cutting wigs, and you probably agree. My advice to most people is take it to a stylist. It is so much harder to cut something into a wig than you will ever think. I'll just cut bangs. No, they look awful, and you're like, what did I do? And, I mean, you can go back and take your scissors and go back this to kind of make it look less blunt. But the best advice I can give you is find someone who knows how to cut hair professionally and have them cut it, or buy the wig with bangs already.
But if you're doing it for a competition, you've got to do it yourself. Just think about how a person at a salon would cut your hair. They're not
Yeah,
gonna
that's
do
what it
this.
is.
They don't take your hair and they don't cut straight across like this. They do this, they cut up, they cut down. Just think about when you're at the salon next time getting your hair cut, really pay attention to what they're doing, because that's what you gotta do. That's how you get that natural cut.
When I'm doing bangs, I'll cut the excess length off first, then I'll put it on and I'll stand in front of there with my little scissors and I'm like back and forth.
Also,
Not like
The
this.
thinning shears are really good too.
Yes.
The scissors that like look like teeth.
They're
Just
zigzaggy.
chop across, and that way it cuts off some excess, but it kind of gives you some varying length, like real bangs have. So that's a good trick too.
It's much harder than you think, and it takes a lot of practice, and you'll practice yourself right into not having enough bangs because you weren't paying attention, and then you're,
Yeah, just put it on if you're gonna cut bangs. Just don't try to do it on a wig head. It never works.
all right. Is there any techniques about wig sculpting, anything that you guys have had questions about?
Yes.
How well does Hyperlon fiber take to dye?
Not very well at all. I got one to dye once by doing the set it out in the sun method, but when I rinsed it, most of it did it out, so I did it again and didn't rinse it, knowing that if I got too hot, it would mess up. And so I did it anyway because I was in a pinch. I had the wig, you know. I was just knew that if I got it wet, it was gonna all come off.
I've heard I've never had this with got to be glue. That's like godsend to me when it comes to wigs.
Oh yeah, this is your spiking. If you like to do spikes for characters.
But I've had some people online say that it's best if you're not using the wig to wash it because it gets like the white flakes. But then if you sculpt it, like have you ever had that where you get like the white flakes from it coming off?
Once I sculpt, I don't ever wash it.
Well, I know. I mean, like, do you ever get like the white flakes from the got to be glue from it sitting in the wig for too long? Okay.
I never have.
You know, we really store our wigs well too. Like for example, I like a method that I like to do that probably helps is I like to put a big plastic, like freezer bag over a style, and kind of keeps dust from settling it and that sort of thing. So that's probably a factor.
Yeah, this is a question about the gotta be
Uh-huh.
putty glue.
This stuff, do you want to feel it?
No, I have some of it. I use it in my wigs that I style. They have another kind, the black bottle.
I've never used it.
I
never
am
used it
tempted
either.
to buy it to try it out because it supposedly is stronger.
Stronger. That's what I saw. But
The yellow bottle, and I'm
this
like,
stuff is so strong. It's like you're working with it and everything sticks
I
to you.
know,
I'm
it's
like,
like,
wow, this stuff's gonna be amazing.
Yeah.
But this is
Like
what
spikes.
everybody uses to do those big, amazing spikes that you see. You can massage it in there, get the spike, and then blow dry it. Make sure you can blow dry it on high heat. A lot of like Hyperlon and DIY can take high heat, but the Kankalon and the older ones can only take low heat or you'll melt them. Any other questions? Anything? Nope.
So recently I've been trying to make a Lulu wig from Final Fantasy, and I've had a lot of issues getting it long enough. Once it's got back in the ponytail and the 4 braids and the braided bun and all the braids, I haven't been able to get the braids long enough. Is there any way that you can add length to it?
There's two methods you can use. Most of these wig extensions, if you go to a wig store, they're all 60 inches long. So you can use that to get 60 inches wefted on. If that's not long enough, I've done 2 methods. I've actually used Hulk and like put stuff together to make it longer. Like if you look at some of my wigs, the transitions are hidden in there, but I've actually taken 2 60 inches and glued them together that way. But there is a place online called drglocks.com, and they have one type of fiber. It's a silky fiber. It's not this frizzy stuff, but it is cut to order. So you actually say, oh, I want it to be 72, I want 120, and they will cut it and send it to you. It's a little more
Just
expensive.
have the money ready, yeah.
Yeah, it's a little more expensive, but for like the Sailor Moon Ojangos, I mean, she's got little silky things that go to the ground. You gotta use them. You can't hide your Hulk in the little Sailor Moon long things, so it's good to have that.
Any other questions? Yep. I think we did. Yep. We got it. All right. Well, thank you guys for coming. If you have any further questions, I've got some little slips of paper with our Facebook page. Feel free to message us about anything you need help with. We answer messages every day. We like doing it. It's never an imposition, so please feel free.
We all like to do this, so we like to talk about it too, of course.
Thank you, guys.